Two.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Peter Hackett. I am the Global Program Director for Cipher. For today's LinkedIn Live session, we are going to talk about cybersecurity challenges for the Internet of Things. With me today is my colleague, Scott Krosky, who is the Global Chief Information Security Officer for Cipher. And also today, we have Francisco Rente, who is our Global Chief Technology Officer and Head of our Operations out of Coimbra, Portugal. Francisco comes to us today from Coimbra, which is not only the location of one of Cipher's 6 security operations centers, but is also the home for our research and development lab. Francisco, how are you today?
I'm very fine, Pete. Thanks for asking. I hope you guys are well as well.
Yeah, thank you, Francisco. We're doing well, just trying to stay safe and healthy in these challenging times we're all living in. So let's get started. So Francisco, before we begin our conversation, I want to highlight to our viewers that Cipher hosts podcasts as well as LinkedIn Live sessions, and we are pleased to have been listed as being number 50 on the 200 most popular podcasts by Chartable in the Brazil tech podcast category. And we've been hosting podcasts for about 3 months now, and we look forward to continuing the climb on the charts, so to speak. So not just in Brazil, but also in North America and EMEA and the rest of the world. And since this is our 3rd LinkedIn Live session, we look forward to sharing our messages with all of you and on our professional contacts in LinkedIn. So for our viewers that are tuning in today for the first time, we're going to answer your questions live today. And so feel free to chime in with any questions in the comments section of the live session, and we will answer them later in the presentation. Okay, so let's get started here. So it's no secret that the next technology boom will be with regards to the Internet of Things, right? So, which is also referred to IoT. So let's talk about a little bit about the overall market. So we know that the IoT market generated about roughly $16.5 billion in 2018, and that's expected to climb to witness a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, as they say in the financial markets, of 22.25% during the period from 2019 to 2024, roughly. So in addition to that, with the growing demand for IoT devices and the security regulations and guidelines that protect that ecosystem, given that that's going to accelerate in the next couple of years, there's going to be a lot of increased need to secure those devices. So, Scott, before we begin, can you provide us an overview of IoT for our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. So IoT is a system of interrelated computing devices with the ability to transfer data over a network without requiring human-to-human or human-to-computer interaction. So you can think of IoT devices as non-traditional computer systems that are connected to the internet and programmed to do certain tasks. So there's many different categories of IoT devices with home. So for example, smart home devices, we see IoT systems such as thermostats, home appliances, home security systems, cameras, smart televisions connected to the internet. There's also a personal fitness or health device category. Those can include some of the smartwatches, Fitbits, heart rate monitors, and myriad of other devices worn for fitness or health purposes. There's a bunch of other categories. I mean, in the healthcare industry, in the industrial control systems that focus on improving manufacturing, the agricultural system, and there's a lot of also commercial uses in transportation and automation. So really, that list can just go on. So when it comes to IoT, there's definitely several concerns associated with these devices, specifically in the realm of security and privacy. This is one of the primary areas that Cipher is focused on with our innovation efforts. Our parent company alone actually has over 1 million IoT devices under management. So we understand the importance of delivering new and innovative methods to secure those devices. And that's really the main focus for today's discussion. And just as a friendly reminder to everyone, for our viewers that are just tuning in, we're going to be answering your questions live today. So feel free to post any questions you have in the comment section of this live session, and we'll answer them later in the presentation.
Yeah, Scott, thanks so much for that introduction. So let's jump into this interesting topic, all right? So Francisco, as the global CTO and also the head of our operations in Portugal, can you give us a little bit of an overview about your job responsibilities?
Of course. So as global CTO, my main responsibility is to leverage synergies from the different regions, synergies that can go from simple share of knowledge or even distribution of effort towards the delivery of services. As head of Portugal, I mean, I work as a glue to make sure that the management team is focused on the right thing. They are very good on what they do, so my job is quite simple there.
So, thanks, Francisco. So, what are some of the common misinterpretations surrounding the security of IoT devices?
So there are a lot of them, actually, Pete. I would like to highlight two. Okay, the first one is connected to the general approach. So until now, people is used to address IoT security in the same way that we are addressing IT security. And I mean, it's completely different in terms of assumptions, requirements, all that. So a good example is in IT security nowadays, almost all the solutions are agent based, which makes sense. We need to do holistic security. We need to protect not only the network and the environment, but also the endpoint itself. But that doesn't work on IT. Sorry, on IoT. So IoT devices are known for have smaller computation resources. So we cannot spare those resources that from the beginning are not enough to implement extra security controls. So agent-based solutions usually doesn't work well on IoT, or at least will create a lot of barriers. The other misunderstanding that I would like to highlight is related with the general development cycle that IoT devices have. So when comparing, for example, to web platforms, which nowadays are based on agile development or even some sort of development approach that allow us to patch security vulnerabilities, implement extra security controls or whatever over the lifetime of the technology, when you go to IoT devices, usually they are more closed. They were developed tendency by low-level engineering, which are more, I don't want to use the word conservative, but that actually is the way. So that technology is more rock solid. It's more closed. You cannot patch it. It's not easy. It's normal that you have a firmware from a certain device which some vulnerability came to public and you don't have any way to patch it. Okay, so that is an issue. So and people believe that okay, so we can patch whatever technology on the world when a new vulnerability come up. That doesn't apply on IoT either.
Understood. So, I mean, but why do IoT devices need cyber protection? I think a lot of our viewers here would like to understand that.
So IoT nowadays, like Scott said on the introduction, are part of our life as individual, as part of organization, as part of a city, a country, a world. So we have smart cities, smart buildings, smart houses, smart industries, healthcare is everywhere. So these devices, they create, they handle, they communicate private and confidential information. So if we don't protect, we will jeopardize that privacy, that security. That's the first aspect. The second one, there are a lot of those IoTs that interact with the physical world, especially on critical infrastructures, on the IIoT, industrial IoT, and so on. So if the security of those devices is compromised, we may end up in a situation that we are creating physical risks and physical threats through the digital world. And that, in my opinion, is something that we need to address as soon as possible, because I mean, it's huge impact on society.
So, just taking that a step further, can you tell us, have there been any notable security incidents that involved IoT devices recently?
Yeah, there are a few. Okay, I would like to highlight two of them. The first one is very known. It is the Mirai Botnet. So it's known for being the biggest botnet built until now. It was the first one built upon IoT devices. It was mainly used to do distributed denial of services, and actually it became very known because back on those days, like 3 years ago, more or less, Mirai was capable of creating the biggest DDoS up to that date. And the second one, it was a ransomware attack in the luxury hotel in Austria. So that luxury hotel had a lot of smart devices, include smart lockers on the rooms. So what happened was, when the attack came up with that specific whatever type of ransomware, the central control system of the smart lockers ended up to be blocked and paralyzed. So this ended up putting all the customers locked inside of the rooms. So, and this is, for example, a very good example from physical threats that impact cyber threats that impact the physical world.
Thanks, Francisco. And I just want to mention to our viewers who are just tuning in now that if you have any questions, please feel free to post them into the comment section of the live session, and we'll answer them later in the presentation today.
Actually, Pete, we have one that just popped up here now.
Okay.
I think this is a good
Exactly.
one. Yeah, Francisco. So yeah, what IoT devices are most susceptible to attacks? That's a good question. In your opinion?
Yeah, I would say that is the ones that are based on most common protocols, like IP, for example. Actually, that was a milestone on IoT security, and probably on the beginning of the century, the IoT, back in those days we didn't use the term, but whatever, those types of devices, they didn't speak IP. So I don't believe in security by obscurity, but the fact is it was much more difficult to attack. I didn't know how to speak with the devices. I don't know, or I wasn't able to do a basic recognition of what services and whatever is on the devices. So I would say that nowadays they are more open to be attacked, but on the same end, they should be easy to be protected. Okay, so it's a trade-off, a little bit complicated.
So as you were mentioning previously, Francisco, in addition to denial of service activities, are there other ways that IoT devices can be abused by attackers?
Yeah, there are a dozen of types of attacks. I would say that conceptually, almost all the type of attacks could apply to IoT environments. But beside DDoS, I would say that spoofing and unauthorized access should be probably the ones that happen more often. Okay, especially on unauthorized access, because imagine this, Pete, when you have IoT device collecting and measuring information from the real world, what we want to probably what an attacker, a threat actor will want to do is to get access to that information, unauthorized access. So it makes sense. The second possible biggest reason to attack that device is to use that device as a weapon. Sorry, that case DDoS suits very well.
And Francisco, one of Cipher's offerings is Yellowbox, right? So, and Yellowbox protects IoT devices. Can you go into detail about how Yellowbox is protecting IoT devices?
Sure, Pete. So Yellowbox is a turnkey solution, an end-to-end solution to protect electronic security systems against cyber threats. Electronic security systems are a subtype of IoT. So what Yellowbox does, using hardware, software, and services, is to deploy holistic security philosophy. So it addresses defenses or protection and reaction capabilities, and also prevention. So in this perspective, we protect all the layers of the environment with defense or protection, reaction, and in some cases prevention. We do that not only for the network, but also for the devices inside of it, from the most high layer of application up to the not the physical layer, but almost there.
Yeah, thanks for that, Francisco. And I think, Scott, you've mentioned to me that we have some research and development projects around IoT devices. Is that correct?
That is correct, absolutely, Pete. And actually, there's a good question that seems that just came in here too. How technically different is it to secure IoT networks or endpoints than any other network or endpoint, or the traditional IoT endpoints? That's actually a very good question. So, that's actually part of one of our research development projects. We'll talk about that here. So, we have several initiatives with regards to protecting IoT devices. One such initiative is through Prosegur's Open Innovation Program. So we're actually looking for entrepreneurs who have developed innovative solutions to address these future security challenges. So our cybersecurity challenge actually answers this question here, around specific to securing IoT devices. So Francisco highlighted today, there's a fundamental problem with IoT devices, and the major challenge is that ensuring IoT devices on a network are trustworthy. So in a traditional IT network, we could establish trust through several methods. We can join that computer system or server to a domain. We can then enforce common security policies across those systems through to the domain policies. We can deploy security software on those IT systems to protect them from threats like endpoint protection and endpoint detection and response software. So with IoT devices, unfortunately, that's not possible due to the ways that these devices are engineered. So they're engineered to be very small, very little hard disk, if any, very small memory, and CPU and battery life to be able to do its specific job function. So, when it comes to IoT devices, our challenge is to find a way to continuously discover IoT devices on a network and evaluate common attributes that can be evaluated for trust. So, because of those limitations in IoT device security, that's one of the projects that we have underway through our open innovation efforts. Another effort that I would like to spend time on today is actually one of our many research and development projects. So we have our ESS and IoT Honeypot project, which holds great promise for us this year. Francisco, would you mind highlighting the goals of this Honeypot project?
Yes, sure, Scott. So, like I said, part of what YellowVox wants to achieve is somehow the prevention, the proactive prevention of certain type of attacks or certain type of cyber threats against ESS, electronic security systems. So, to be able to do that, we need to know our enemy, right? We need to collect information and intelligence about the tactics, techniques, and procedures and tools that they are used against this specific type of devices. So the best way to do that right now is through cyber intelligence. Of course, cyber intelligence is almost a commodity nowadays in our market. But if you look close, you will not find cyber intelligence focused on ESS. Maybe you find in some places IoT generally, but for ESS for sure not. So we built this Honeypot capable of simulating a few hundreds of ESSs, and by collecting information of live attacks, of real attacks, we will be able to produce knowledge to improve our defenses, to understand what kind of attack waves are on the wire right now, if there are any specific new tool or zero-day exploit or whatever. So that is the main purpose of our ESS Honeypot.
Yeah, and for our viewers that are just tuning in, just so that you're aware, we're going to answer your questions live today. So feel free to post your questions in the comments section so we can answer them. And there's actually a really good question here, Francisco. Other cybersecurity companies use Honeypot. So how does ours differ from the rest?
So Victoria, ours differs from the rest because two things. First one is focus on ESSs. So the usual honeypots, they simulate a Windows server, Linux server, a web server, whatever, right? The typical IT systems. Or even you can find some IoT honeypots, only that it's important to say that only few on the market, but even those ones are general IoT. So ours simulates specific electronic security systems, like physical access control systems, biometric devices, CCTVs, fire extinction systems, whatever. So that is one of the particularities of our Honeypot. The second one is the way that it was designed. It's capable of understanding the attack vector that the attacker is doing and adapt upon it. So in this case, it will be much difficult for the attacker to understand what is going on. So a usual deception technique, but it will allow us to study much bigger attack vectors, and not only, for example, recognition focused one, or exploit, or focus on a certain type of exploitations. Typically, or at least that is our goal, it will allow us to go a step further.
Yeah, great. And then, so Francisco, so going back to the threat intelligence piece, so from the honeypot, how will this threat intelligence feed enable better security for our customers?
By the way, Vittorio, thanks very much for the question. So in the end of the day, this will add to the protection and mitigation or resolution capabilities, will allow us to give some prevention, some proactive prevention. So we can say somehow to our customers that we will be able to be a step further. Okay, let's put it this way. Of course, this is not exactly that, but the concept is to understand threats before they reach your door.
Yeah, that's great, Francisco. And the security IoT device is extremely important. So with the rollout of 5G communications, I personally believe, and we believe that this is will be the catalyst that will facilitate a boom in IoT devices across the commercial market. So it's important that we definitely get ahead of this effort and come to the market with security solutions for IoT devices. I think, Bill, there's a question in the queue here as well too before we proceed regarding Yellow Box. Yeah, so I know we just spoke a little bit about Yellow Box there, but could you explain in simple terms how that works?
Okay, no worries. Sorry if I was too techy. So Yellow Box is a way of protecting your electronic security systems against cyber threats. So ESSs nowadays, like we said before, they speak IP. So they are prone to a lot of attacks that are in the wild in the internet. And unfortunately, because in most of the cases we need to connect those devices through the internet, they are exposed to those attacks. So what Yellow Box does is first block those attacks. If some of those attacks become somehow successful, it creates capability to mitigate the attack as soon as possible and to resolve whatever impact that may happen. And like I was explaining a little bit before, it tries to anticipate possible future threats and build new protections, new capabilities of blocking and detecting attacks before they came to your shore.
Yeah, thank you. Good response. So I think, Pete, any other areas you want to focus on here today?
Yeah, I mean, Scott, listen, I find the topic of cyber intelligence is extremely fascinating, and especially when it comes with regards to the IoT honeypot. And I think, Francisco, it'd be awesome if we could have some of our colleagues from our Cyber Intelligence Center to come on and talk about the new and innovative ways that we're employing these collection activities. But I think that with the time we have remaining, maybe you can go into a little bit about our domain protection offering and how it helps protect from typo squatting and domain squatting threats.
Yeah, sure. So as you know, Pete, we are delivering this service for a long time now. Okay, but we end up into a situation where a big part of the work was manual. So having analysts going through all that data and detecting possible squattings, it was painful and expensive. So a few years ago, we started to develop concepts of automating and orchestrating this service. This technology, which is part of our cyber intelligence orchestration platform, what does is automates the collection of possible evidences of those domains, does a certain set of analysis on top of that to understand if the word is similar to brands of our customers or not, if they are somehow using some sort of encoding, whatever. It is agnostic to the TLD, to the top level domain that is used, and it was designed to be real time. In the second stage, the system tries to understand if the domain is already being used for malicious campaigns, for example, like a phishing campaign. So it collects a set of evidences that then, with the initial analysis, delivers to an analyst to a final manual triage. So we end up reducing our human effort in more or less 2/3. So it was a good improvement. Now we can deliver the same quality much faster.
Yeah, that's great, Francisco. And we really look forward to doing a LinkedIn live session on the topic of cyber intelligence and how it helps protect our customers. So, can't wait to delve into that topic in a future session. Francisco, with the time remaining, do you have any final thoughts for our viewers?
Yes. So, Pete and Scott, as we all know, Cipher is focusing on IoT security for B2B, okay? And there are other players on the market, commercial or not, that are addressing the same problem. But as an individual, I would like to highlight that B2C IoT should also be addressed in terms of security, okay? We have a lot of smart devices in our life that could compromise our privacy. Of course, that when we are an individual and not an organization, there are other types of threats that should address it. But in the end, we should, as a society, create capabilities to protect also that security.
Yeah. Hey, Francisco. I think let's see if there's any other questions in the queue here. This is actually a good one. So I think going back to the IoT Honeypot, can you, with that same product or threat intelligence service, protect a different range of IoT devices such as medical beds, door locks, automatic fire extinguishers, etc.? So, the answer to that is yes, right? If you wanted to elaborate on that.
Yes, we can. So nowadays the solution is focused on ESSs, where automatic fire extinguishers is part of it, and door lockers as well. But for example, medical beds or other medical devices already are a different type of IoT. So conceptually, the solution is ready for it, but we decide for business reasons, we decide to start with ESSs. Like Scott said, our group has more than 1 million of those devices under direct management, and probably it sells 3 times more to customers. So we decide to start to this type of IoTs, but probably in the future we will scale up to other types.
Yeah, very good. And just for our listeners as well too, if there's any other questions that you have, feel free to post those in the chat window there. With the remaining time that we have, we'll be happy to answer those.
Yeah, and listen, Scott and Francisco, thanks so much for your time today. This has been extremely informative for both myself and our viewers, and really look forward to our next LinkedIn Live session. So also, for anyone who's interested in the Prosegur Open Innovation Challenge on securing IoT devices, please visit the program website, which can be reached at www.prosegur.com/come-in. And it will also be in the description of our LinkedIn Live session today. And also, for anyone who's interested in our services, please you can reach us at our marketing department, which can be reached at marketing@cipher.com.
All right.